Katamari Damacy is the type of game I love to talk about, but I loathe to try and create a script for a video around it because, in case you haven't noticed yet, I'm not very good at writing scripts at all. But practice makes perfect, so today we'll be taking a look at Katamari Damacy Reroll, the remake of the first game in the cult hit series that got remade for everything currently modern, plus PC, which thankfully is eternal. But what makes it so hard to talk about, you might ask? Well, it's because it's just such a unique game. There's absolutely nothing else to compare it to except for other games in the same series, which means making comparisons or even having an easy start point to discuss it in comparison with other games is pretty much impossible. You could call it a third-person adventure game, but Katamari is a third-person adventure game in the same way pizza is a vegetable. It isn't. The deal here is that the developers have crafted such a simple gameplay loop that is nonetheless very unique, and there's nothing quite like it. You play as the Prince of All Cosmos, and your father, the King of All Cosmos, screwed up and essentially removed all of the stars of the universe from existence. So he tasks you with fixing his mess by giving you a little ball called a Katamari and asking you to roll around with it, because anything the Katamari touches gets stuck in it, so long as the object is smaller than the Katamari. And by rolling up objects, it obviously starts getting bigger as you start rolling more objects, which means in turns that you can roll up even more objects to make it even bigger ad infinitum. The objective is to create a Katamari big enough that it could replace one of the stars in the sky, each level representing a different star you must make, with the final objective and biggest Katamari of them all being the moon, because as far as we can see it from Earth, the moon is bigger than any of the stars, right? And is that sort of logic that is one of the main running gags of the game. Every single bit of it is absolutely ridiculous, from the world it takes place in to the objects you can roll, and of course the dialogue, which while scarce, is very much hilarious. The game doesn't stop to wink or nod at you whenever it does something ridiculous, as if to signal that now it is the time for you to laugh. Instead, it just casually spouts amusing anecdotes whenever it can, and lets you take in the jokes at your own pace, which in a world that is already this dense with quirkiness is very much appreciated. Each level begins with a few introductory sentences and off you go roll your Katamari until a certain size. The only failure state is that each level has a time limit and you will fail if you don't reach the target size in time. When you do reach it, the level doesn't end either. Instead, the game just lets you keep rolling around to see how far you can get before time's up. So you're free to arcade it up and set some high scores. The control scheme for the game is just as weird as the rest of the game. From looking at screens and videos, you might have guessed that just like in other games, you would use one analog stick for the camera and another analog stick to move like standard video games, but you'd be wrong, because instead of controlling the Katamari, you control the prince in the most direct way possible. You have no control over the big ball itself, and instead you must use both analog sticks to control the prince as you position him around the Katamari before your next push. It is odd and takes some getting used to, but once you do, you appreciate just how unique it makes the game feel, all the way down to the control scheme. The controls also give you access to other useful functions, like a quick turn that puts you instantly on the opposite side of the Katamari, as well as a first-person view and the ability to jump real high into the sky and see the whole area as a map of sorts. Both functions that allow you to strategize and plan your next move. And plan the next move you must, because careless play will definitely result in a game over. There is no set strategy. Each level has its own sandbox, and items can even appear and disappear between runs of the same level, so it's up to you to find out what works best for yourself. I personally targeted large groups of small objects rather than try my luck with singular larger ones, since if your Katamari hits anything larger than itself, some of the objects will fly off and you have to recover them, which is another thing to watch out for. Of course, the game guides you somewhat by recommending you go to some areas to search for bigger objects as you reach certain sizes, but it's surprising how mostly hands-off it is, allowing you to go around the neighborhood, producing chaos as you go wherever you want to. This weird mechanic operating in a small sandbox it's one half of what makes this game so great. It gives you an objective no other game has and still manages to create a basic gameplay loop that allows for player freedom. The other half of what makes this game so great is the sheer sense of escalation it has. You can start collecting erasers at the beginning of a level and end it by getting the entire neighborhood stuck in your Katamari, from the houses all the way to the helicopters flying around, and all of this is done in one go. There are no loading screens or cutscene transitions as you grow. You don't need to go to another area, you are not forced to continue your quest. There are no tricks or stops between any part of the game. There is just growing from 0 to 1,000,000 in a single go, and that visceral feel of pure escalation is something few games manage to do. How the game managed to do this, even if when it was originally released for the PS2, it's actually quite simple. Every single object in the world is more geometrically simple than it appears at first. Some of them are very obviously simpler than real life stuff, but others are simpler in ways you don't see at first. But that's not all, because as you grow to certain sizes, the smallest objects that are now insignificant to you are removed from the level while the game spawns some of the bigger ones. Like everything else in the game, it is a deceptively simple trick that works wonders in handling a game of this scale, even on weaker hardware. And finally, tying all of the experience together is the soundtrack, which is so whimsical and upbeat, it practically acts as a mission statement for the game itself. And trust me when I say it will stick with you long after you finish the game. Weeks after I finish it, I'm still going back to the soundtrack. It is seriously addictive, and the major proof of that is the main theme song. If you've been around video games for a significant amount of time, chances are you heard the main theme of this game, even if you never played it. If there is one fatal flaw in the game, is that the in-game logic for what you can and can't take to the Katamari is inconsistent. There are times when you are clearly bigger than an object, but you bounce off of it because the game decided you're not quite big enough for its liking and then you should try again later. Also, sometimes things won't stick to your Katamari unless you hit them with the, let's call it, the core of the Katamari. Even though the core has long since been covered by 1,000 different objects, the game sort of produces another core that you need to stick the things in that is sort of invisible as you go along, and you sort of have to roll with it. You won't be hit often by those moments, but when you do, some of the pure magic of the game will wear off and you'll be brought down to earth, as they clearly showcase the technical limitations of the game's hit detection system. But that is too small of a flaw to blemish an otherwise perfectly fine, perfectly fun experience. Everything in this game is very unique and different from other games, and it is simple enough that it should be experienced by absolutely everyone. It's an absolutely lovely experience, and I can definitely rate it as one of my top favorite games of all time easily. By the way, did I mention the main menu is the prince jumping around planets, and that your save files are represented by different segments of the Namco logo? Yeah, play this game! You gotta play this game for the Namco save files if nothing else. Play it, you won't regret it. And that's it for today. Thanks for listening to the very end. I have no news about if they're going to remake the second game. It has been like 2 years since the release of this remake, and they haven't announced if they're going to remake the second game in the series. But fingers crossed they also remake We Love Katamari, because it is this game but bigger and better, if I remember it correctly, and I'd love to see it on modern systems as well. Well, that's it. Thanks for tuning in, and I see you guys next time.
I know you love me. I wanna word you up into my life. Let's roll up to be